The announcement made by Pierce Brosnan was unexpected. The former James Bond is getting ready for the worst at the age of 71. At 43, ovarian cancer claimed the life of his first wife. His daughter then passed away at age 41 from the same illness. Now, something has occurred, prompting him to confront his greatest fear. Playing the strongest spy in the world, the man is facing an unwinnable war. And everyone is concerned about his next move. Pierce Brosnan was born in Drogheda, Ireland, on May 16, 1953. He didn't have much to start with. It found out that there was no father, no fortune, and no family legacy. At such a young age, Pierce's father, Thomas, a carpenter, vanished, leaving him unable to recall his face, voice, or even his existence. He seemed to have disappeared completely. The burden was placed on his mother, May. She kept a life that had already started to unravel together by working as a nurse. But she had to make a difficult decision in 1957. She went in search of employment in London. Pierce, age 4, is left behind in Ireland. She was at a loss. However, that choice left Pierce's young world with yet another hole in it. 7 long years passed during what was supposed to be a brief separation. He originally lived with his grandparents in Navan during that period, and subsequently with an uncle and aunt in Trim. Every new house had its own set of rules. Unknown faces in new schools. Pierce didn't stay long enough to fit in. He discovered that he needed to remain silent, observe, and live. He was the outsider and the new kid all the time. Teachers saw something about him. Bright but reclusive, he was never fully present and was constantly staring out the window. Then, in 1964, everything changed. At 11 years old, he relocated to Greenock, Scotland. His mom was no longer married. William Carmichael, her new husband, was a factory worker. He had patience and kindness. However, this new home evoked conflicting feelings in a youngster who had been raised in an inconsistent environment. Pierce felt conflicted. He was both relieved and incensed to see his mother again. Furthermore, she was now dating a different man, one who wasn't his father. William nevertheless made an effort. Pierce learned simple things from him, including fishing, mending things, and regaining trust. He never exerted excessive force. He never made an effort to replace anyone. William took Pierce to the movies one day. Goldfinger was the film, and it came out in 1964. As James Bond, Sean Connery glowed on screen. That night was a game-changer. Bond was more than a fictional persona to Pierce. In every way Pierce had felt, he was the complete opposite. Bond had strength. Bond felt secure. Bond was in command. That's what Pierce aspired to be. When Pierce was 16, he took another risk. With nothing except a love of painting and no money or clear strategy, he left school in London and enrolled in St. Martin's School of Art. He admired the writings of Lucian Freud and Francis Bacon. Acting wasn't even on his radar at the time. Design and art were his main interests. In contrast to his classmates, who came from affluent backgrounds, he made do with tea and bread. Although he was adamant about proving his belonging, destiny had other ideas. Pierce happened onto a theatre workshop in South London in 1971 while still pursuing his art studies. He observed a fire eater rehearsing his act. Pierce requested if he might give it a go rather than leaving. His destiny was altered by that one impromptu event. He struck the group as possessing a blend of natural presence and boldness. He was invited to join them. Everything began to make sense to him now, even if he had never acted before. Like Bond, he had stepped into a world of charm and danger. Pierce joined the Drama Centre London shortly after. From 1973 to 1976, he trained more diligently than ever before for 3 years. School was hard. More than 60% of pupils left school. The instructors were stern. They dismantled students in order to rebuild them. A few give up. Some people experienced breakdowns. Pierce persisted, nevertheless. He had a few side occupations. Shakespeare was one of his studies. He even had circus and mime training. A fortune in those days, it cost £1,200 a year. Pierce, however, persisted. His first significant break came in 1976 when he was cast in the stage production of Wait Until Dark. Pierce played a figure that made people uneasy, and the film was a thriller. There was something icy and unnerving about him that the director noticed. The edge was effective. He played a daring part in The Red Devil Battery Sign, a challenging Tennessee Williams drama, a year later. Pierce made the play come to life in London after it had failed in America. Critics gave his performance high marks. All at once, people began to take notice. Next, he went to film. He and Elizabeth Taylor starred in the Blink and You Miss It movie The Mirror Cracked in 1980. His time on screen was under 30 seconds. It was a start, even though he only made £50. He co-starred with Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren in The Long Good Friday that same year. He had a small role in the IRA. Initially a failure, the film eventually became a cult favorite. Pierce was there, creating his route to fame in silence. Pierce Brosnan was hardly well known outside of the UK in 1982. Though nothing significant, he had done some theatrical and television work in Britain. Then the unexpected occurred. He went to try out for a little part on Remington Steele, a brand new program. As a murder victim, not as the main character. That might have been the end of it, just one scene. NBC's casting director, however, recognized something in him. They noticed charisma, screen presence, and a certain allure. Thus, he was summoned back for the starring role rather than a supporting role. Everything changed after that choice. The initial scheme for Remington Steele involved an experienced American scammer in his 50s. In the United States, Brosnan was unknown, young, Irish, and 29 years old. Nevertheless, the producers took a chance. Many of the more than 200 actors that tried out were well-known Americans. The part went to Brosnan. The part nearly went to him because of his Irish accent. Managers were afraid that American viewers wouldn't take a foreign lead. But he was Remington Steele once he took on the part. He was cool, smooth, and mysterious, and audiences adored him for just that. October 1, 1982, was the show's premiere date. It was a hit right away and was the second highest-rated news series on NBC. Each week, 15.6 million people watched in its first year alone. The journey wasn't easy, though. In fact, following its fourth season in 1986, the show was discontinued. Fans were incensed. The studio decided to modify its mind. For a final run, it returned. In February 1987, the last show broadcast, drawing close to 26 million people. That's the sort of farewell that most shows can only imagine. Remington Steele was generating nearly $50 million annually for NBC only from advertising at its height. Another $200 million was contributed by sales abroad. Over 80 nations aired the show. Additionally, an odd event occurred in America. Private detective license applications increased 340% between 1983 and 1987. Brosnan's cool, witty persona had obviously touched a nerve. However, success has a cost. Brosnan should be the next James Bond, according to critics who had only been watching the show for 2 months. Entertainment Weekly referred to him as the most Bond-like performer since Sean Connery in January 1983. Albert Covey Broccoli, the producer of Bond, contacted him a few months later. He observed. And he was curious. The speculation peaked in 1984. NBC took a stance. They alluded to Brosnan's secret agent persona in their marketing. When he was interviewed by TV Guide, they asked, "The next 007?" Even Ian Fleming's widow, Anne Fleming, stated in public that Brosnan resembled her husband's ideal Bond in both appearance and behavior. Brosnan was receiving significant critical acclaim at the same time. He received a Golden Globe nomination that year for his performance in Nancy Astor. It was just his second significant TV role. Legends like Anthony Hopkins and John Gielgud faced him. Brosnan almost prevailed, though. According to industry insiders, his defeat was only 3 votes. He even made the genuine Astor family impressed with his performance, who were initially against the series. His Bond adventure was not going to be easy. The prevailing belief is that he was initially offered Bond in 1985. Not accurate. In 1983, he was actually given consideration for the position in Order to Kill. Roger Moore wasn't sure if he wanted to do another movie, and Brosnan was available. He had first encountered Broccoli on the set of For Your Eyes Only, which featured a brief appearance by Brosnan's wife, Cassandra Harris. Broccoli stated, "If he can act, he's my guy," after giving him a quick glance. But the studio went into a panic. Moore received an enormous payout of more than $3.5 million in exchange. So, once more, Brosnan's shot was postponed. Then something far worse occurred in 1986. Remington Steele was shut down. But the show's ratings soared when it was revealed that Brosnan might be the next Bond. NBC spotted an opportunity. The cancellation was overturned, and a brief fifth season was mandated. Brosnan's contract remained in place. Consequently, he was unable to film Bond. It was violent. The publicity he received from being associated with Bond was turned against him. He got stuck. As he concluded the last season of Remington Steele, the creators of Bond moved on. Timothy Dalton was cast. For both Bond and Brosnan, that moment was pivotal. Brosnan was friends with Dalton. It stung to lose the role, but he had to keep a grin on his face. Bond was darker and gritty in Dalton's portrayal. It was a failure. With only $34 million in revenue, License to Kill failed in the US. From the sidelines, Brosnan observed. He was aware that he could have presented an alternative. Brosnan did not vanish between 1986 and 1994, which admirers refer to as the lost years. His decisions were wise. He portrayed a British spy in the Cold War thriller The Fourth Protocol, released in 1987. Although it wasn't Bond, it was rather close. In the 1986 film Nomads, he starred in a supernatural part, demonstrating his range. He even portrayed a dapper, tuxedo-wearing hero in Diet Coke advertisements. An unsubtle reference to James Bond. It was in the late 1970s when Pierce Brosnan first encountered Cassandra Harris. She was born Sandra Colleen Waits in Sydney in 1948 and was already a working actress. They clicked right away when they first met. Love was not Pierce's intention. She was just stunning, in his opinion. But something took place. They soon shared a home in Wimbledon. In 1980, they were married on December 27. Cassandra was quite excited about her new beginning because she had recently gone through a difficult divorce. Charlotte and Christopher were the two children she had from that marriage. Pierce made no hesitation. As if he had always been there, he entered their lives. The heart attack death of Dermot Harris, Cassandra's ex-husband. Pierce adopted the kids lawfully in 1986. His name was adopted. However, it was more than just paperwork. Since Pierce didn't have a father growing up, he gave his all to be the father he never had. Once, he declared, "I wasn't a father. I was Pierce. Then I became a father." Cassandra and Pierce had a son together in 1983. He was given the name Sean. So they were 5. It felt warm and full. Pierce's career was improving, and the children got along well. However, family came first. He desired to love them as much as he was never loved as a child. He made sure kids were visible, content, and safe. In 1981, a wonderful event occurred. Cassandra's role in the Bond movie was just for your amusement. Prior to Pierce's aspirations of becoming 007, she portrayed a Bond girl. However, Pierce got to know Bond producer Albert Broccoli while she was filming. Cassandra had faith in him. She urged him to apply for the job. After being impressed, Broccoli thought Pierce would make a great Bond. However, Pierce was bound by an agreement with Remington Steele. He was unable to fill the position. Not yet. Cassandra was desperate to get it for him. She was never able to witness it, though. All of that changed in 1987. Cassandra began experiencing severe nausea when Pierce was in India filming The Deceivers. They took a plane back to London. The news was awful. She developed cancer of the ovaries. Not merely a tiny lump or anything that is simple to fix. There was it everywhere. The diagnosis was a shock. According to Pierce, "We were up against a battle from the beginning. The next 4 years were ruthless." Cassandra had to undergo 8 operations. Chemotherapy lasted for a year and a half. She had hair loss. Her body gave out. But she remained resilient. She questioned each procedure. Her choices were her own. She bravely faced it all. Pierce remained on her side throughout. Known as the quiet party, he was often present but frequently powerless. There were moments when their young son, Sean, would act like the doctor. It broke my heart. With the same cancer, Cassandra's mother had passed away. Not merely terrible luck was to blame. Genetics was the cause. It made matters worse. Charlotte had become a concern for them as well. Pierce turned into a champion for awareness and early testing. Although it was too late for Cassandra, he still wished to assist others. Her time was up in December 1991. "Please, darling, don't worry," Cassandra murmured as they lay in bed one night, Pierce distraught. Life is simply coming to an end. Despite everything, she remained the stronger one. Dignity was what she desired, not hospitals or machines. She had to face death how she saw fit. December 28, 1991, was her death date. Her age was just 43. Pierce was accompanied by her son, Christopher. The call came from Charlotte, who was studying acting in London. It was Christmas. Pierce was organizing a funeral while others were having a celebration. The hardest thing was having to break the news of his mother's passing to 8-year-old Sean. Suddenly, Pierce was left to raise 3 children alone himself. Christopher was 19, Charlotte was 20, and Sean was 8. According to him, that was the first time he had experienced true grief. Despite being overwhelmed, he persisted. "Cassandra made me who I am," he stated. Later, he said, "She's always in every fiber of my being." The role of James Bond was eventually given to Pierce Brosnan in 1994. His wife, Cassandra Harris, added an extra layer of personal significance. She starred as a Bond girl in the 1981 film For Your Eyes Only. She encouraged him to reapply for the position because she had cancer by that time. Before she died, she wanted to witness him turn into 007 herself. Therefore, his eventual success wasn't merely a triumph. It was a combination of victory and grief. He made a make-or-break debut in GoldenEye. Not for him alone, but for the entire Bond series. The budget had increased to $60 million, and the picture had already burnt through its directors. Almost going bankrupt was MGM. Bond would have been dead in that spot if it had failed. Globally, however, GoldenEye earned $353 million. The cost of that tank pursuit scenario in St. Petersburg alone was $8 million. In Switzerland, Brosnan performed 90% of his own stunts, including a scary bungee leap from a 220-meter dam. Insurance companies wouldn't cover it because it was so risky. It came out precisely 30 years after Sean Connery's last official Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever. It wasn't your average film. A resurrection took place. It was successful. Because of it, Nintendo even made the video game GoldenEye 007. That game brought Bond to a whole new generation and revolutionized the business. The triumph didn't end there. All 3 of Brosnan's subsequent Bond movies brought in a total of $1.238 billion. But there was a personal cost to such victories. In 1997, he was still mourning Cassandra's passing from 6 years prior when Tomorrow Never Dies came out. He infused the character with that suffering. Filming a single pursuit sequence in Saigon cost $12 million. In England, they had to construct a whole Vietnamese street specifically for it. There is not enough of the world. Bond had the longest opening scene in 1999, which lasted 14 minutes. Bond's first female lead antagonist was also in it. With 120 gallons of gasoline, they even staged a real oil pipeline explosion that produced a blaze that could be seen from 10 miles away. In 2002, Die Another Day followed. Bond's 40th anniversary was commemorated. And Brosnan was almost killed. After a failed parasurfing attempt, he was dragged beneath 30-foot waves. Due to hypothermia, he ended up in the hospital. In that same film, a $300,000 invisible Aston Martin and a huge ice palace constructed in Iceland out of 1,000 tons of ice were showcased. However, Brosnan was more than simply a box office success. The Saturn Award for Best Actor went to him in 1996. It was crazy since he defeated Sean Connery, who received a nomination for The Rock that same year. For the first time ever, a current Bond surpassed a previous one. Even after GoldenEye, Brosnan received a call from Steven Spielberg offering him the Indiana Jones part. Remaining faithful to Bond, Brosnan declined. He probably lost $50 million because of that decision. But it demonstrated his level of dedication to the job. It all appeared to be ideal. 2004 followed. While filming After the Sunset, he was in the Bahamas. Life was good. He had worked on 4 Bond movies that brought about $1.4 billion. He was training, presenting Bond 21 ideas, and in excellent physical condition. At 2:47 p.m., his phone rang afterwards. He was let go by the producers. No notice, no justification. 47 seconds were spent on the call. "You made a fantastic James Bond. Thank you very much. Goodbye." It was that. It was chilly because his flicks had done so well. The most amount of money ever produced by a Bond film at the time, $431.9 million, was earned by Die Another Day. But a younger Bond was already what the producers wanted. To strike him, they waited until he was exposed and alone. 3 days later, everything was different. 3 movie deals vanished. Studios pulled out. He was viewed as too Bond and difficult to cast in any other role, according to internal correspondence. He reduced his asking price from $12 million to $3 million. 12 employees had to be let go by him. He experienced severe depression. His children witnessed his tears with the release of the Casino Royale teaser. It struck him hard. Without even saying goodbye, his role had been transferred. As it turns out, the producers had been feigning faith in him while screen testing other performers for 2 years. The treachery hurt more than the actual dismissal. However, a few months prior to his official Bond status in 1994, something else was going on. An unforeseen event occurred. In Cabo San Lucas, he met Keely Shea Smith at a beach party on April 8 around 7:30 p.m. She worked as a journalist, and they immediately clicked. The celebrity did not impress her. She didn't enjoy what he did, she liked who he was. Until 2 a.m., they spoke. It took him 3 weeks to fly her to meet his children. After 6 months, she moved in. They had a genuine bond. And when everything else failed, that bond became the one thing he could rely on years later. Their marriage took place in Ireland in 2001. It was a $2.3 million ceremony. It took place at the nearly 800-year-old church known as Ballintubber Abbey. Only 100 people were invited, including Judi Dench and Liam Neeson. A traditional Irish kilt was worn by Brosnan. When Keely walked down the aisle, he broke down in tears. In 2013, Charlotte Brosnan passed away at the age of just 41. Her passing was more than a tragedy, though. The same family had experienced this exact nightmare 3 times. Ovarian cancer had claimed her grandmother's life. At barely 43, so had her mother, Cassandra Harris. And now, Charlotte. When she died of the illness, she was 2 years younger than her mother. Charlotte had struggled. The cancer that silently developed inside her was fought for 3 years. It's no accident that ovarian cancer is known as the silent killer. Usually, it is too late by the time it is discovered. Actually, only 75% of women receive a diagnosis in the latter stages, when their odds of survival decline from 90% to as low as 20%. To 30%. The year Charlotte was born was 1971. After losing Dermot Harris, her real father, she was taken in by Pierce Brosnan in 1986. He gave her his name, his affection, and his heart. But since the genetic curse had already robbed 2 generations, no amount of love could reverse it. It was more than simply losing his daughter for Pierce. The worst conceivable reenactment of history was what it was about. He lost Cassandra, his wife, to the same illness back in 1991. She received chemotherapy for 8 months and underwent 8 operations. Watching someone you love fade away like that, piece by piece, he said, is life-changing. It completely rewires your world. You're confronting death, he said. Everything is altered. Then, 22 years later, Charlotte experienced the same thing. Pierce took the stage at the 2014 Stand Up to Cancer event and gave his all. I grasped the hand of my first wife, Cassie, who died too soon from ovarian cancer, he added. She was generous, powerful, and beautiful. And just a year ago, I held my lovely, witty daughter Charlotte's hand before she did. Passed away due to this miserable, hereditary illness. It wasn't just new sorrow. It felt like deep, dark, and old trauma all over again. Charlotte's condition had a dark side, as Ron Roylance, one of Pierce's closest friends, put it so neatly. The entire nightmare was being replayed for Pierce. Once more, he had discovered love. He had a new family after getting married to Keely Shea Smith in 2001. With 2 sons, Paris and Dylan. Charlotte's illness, however, brought back every memory and every feeling of helplessness. Royland claimed he was very crushed. But despite all of that suffering, Healy supported him and kept him united. Then the cruelest turn of events occurred. Charlotte got married. She said, "I do," to Alex Smith on June 14, 2013. Her long-term companion. She vanished after 2 weeks. She passed away in London on Friday, June 28, 2013, at precisely 2 p.m. Alex was encircled by her brothers, Christopher and Sean, as well as her two children, Isabella, 15, and Lucas, 8. She was born in London, where she also pursued her acting studies until her life ended. After she passed away, Pierce issued a brief statement. With dignity, bravery, and humanity, Charlotte battled her cancer. She has incredible strength. She planned her wedding right up until her last few weeks. She wished to show her kids that love was still important. Her daughter Isabella, like Charlotte when Cassandra was diagnosed, was 15 when her mother passed away. The age of Lucas was 8. Sean, Pierce's son, had been at that age when his mother passed away. The reverberation of history was nearly too exact and harsh. Charlotte was described by friends as the type of mother who gave her children her all. She once told her friend Claire Beckwith that she no longer cared about performing. She claimed that this was her family. "I want to show them as much love as I can." In 2 weeks, Alex Smith transitioned from newlywed to widower. He now had to raise two kids who had just witnessed their mother go missing. In addition to grieving again, Pierce, who is now a grandfather, tried to remain strong for the people who were left behind. Not all of Charlotte's siblings, however, managed to adjust. Pierce Brosnan went down hard. He was just 19 years old in 1991 when Cassandra passed away. He showed promise. He worked on The World Is Not Enough and Tomorrow Never Dies, two of Pierce's Bond movies. However, the agony overtook him. He received a £1,000 punishment for driving while intoxicated by 1996. He spent 3 months in jail a year later for repeating the offense. Next came narcotics, heroin, and GHB. He passed out in front of a bar in London and went into a coma. He was arrested once more in 2012 when he was 32 years old, this time for possessing heroin. Far removed from Hollywood and his former self, he had joined the Brixton drug scene. Christopher makes his first public appearance after 20 years in June 2024. In London, he was seen by paparazzi outside a grocery store, looking thin, lonely, and 51 years old. Keely Shea Smith, meanwhile, has been battling her own struggle. Her weight was ridiculed by the press for years. They compared her youthful appearance with her postpartum appearance by displaying before and after photos. On the internet, trolls proliferated. Pierce refused to accept it. For her, he wrote a now famous post. "I adore all of her body curves. I think she's the most gorgeous woman." Additionally, she gave birth to our 5 children. Keely, who is currently 61, lost 100 pounds in 2024. Just patience, whole foods, swimming, walking, and no surgery or shortcuts. First and foremost, self-respect. "Thank you for everything my body has given and achieved over the past 60 years, she posted on the internet. She and Pierce celebrated their 23rd wedding anniversary in August 2024, marking 31 years after their first meeting. They persevered despite tragedy, disgrace, and loss. During their anniversary, Pierce referred to her as his East, West, South, and North. "I have never met a more beautiful, compassionate, or exquisite person than you," Keely retorted. They were just spotted at George Clooney's April 2025 Broadway premiere. Keely wearing a black dress with lace. Pierce, who remains solid and engaging. In spite of everything, he continues to work. He was chosen to play Dr. Fate in the 2022 Black Adam film. Pierce had the ideal balance of strength and composure, according to the director. Even at 71, he remains one of Hollywood's most stylish men. More than that, though, he is a fighter. He has made purpose out of his suffering. He has been a UNICEF ambassador since 2001 and is now an advocate. He has joined Greenpeace in marches, expressed opposition to nuclear testing, and organized funds to raise awareness of cancer. He once objected against nuclear weapons by not attending the French premiere of GoldenEye. He claimed that if Charlotte was ill, he would do anything, call anyone, go anywhere, and beg if necessary. He only wished for her survival. Even though he was unable to save her, he continues to strive to save others.